Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Story to Screen podcast, the podcast where we review all different kinds of movies, new and old. I'm your host, Chris, and look, up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane, it's Benjamin Curley, ladies and gentlemen, not Superman.
What's up? Hey!
Hey, I thought you were Superman.
Yeah, sorry to disappoint.
Are you wearing glasses?
I am wearing glasses right now.
Ah, okay. And you got the suit on. Well, not the Superman suit on, but you know the attire.
Yeah. I got the suit and I got the curl too.
Oh, there you go. You came really prepared. Now, big question. As a kid, did you ever play Superman just as a kid? Like you put a towel around your neck and you just went around flying as Superman. Did you do any of that stuff?
Yes. I don't know if it was Superman specifically, but I definitely played a superhero with a cape. Okay. Yes.
And big question. Did you put your underwears on? I had the white ones. I could never find the red.
I at a young age I knew that looked pretty stupid.
I did. I put 3 white underwear, Fruit and Loom, whatever those. And my dad would see me like, Chris, you look so ridiculous. Take those off. But I'm Superman, Dad. Yeah, son, I'm sorry. You just don't have the physique of Superman yet. So, not presentable. Go and take those off. Anyway, so tonight's movie review, folks, is Superman the Movie from 1978, starring the legendary Christopher Reeve. I did want to ask you a question, Ben. We are just like a week away. Next week is when Batman v Superman opens.
I know, it's like right on us.
I'm just curious, has your anticipation for this movie kind of increased recently, or you're kind of, where are you kind of at now with Batman v Superman?
I don't know. I'm still kind of, I'll wait and see. I'm really not expecting anything that good. I would love to be surprised, but yeah, I don't know.
I don't know, like the more, I don't know if you've seen like some of the trailers, just like the last 2. I thought the Comic-Con one and the first teaser trailer were good. They gave the movie a personality. But these last 2, it just seems to be kind of tonally, it's all over the place. I don't know if you saw.
Yeah, it's just too busy. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
And they're just telling us the whole story before. I mean, I'd love to be wrong on that, but
I hope so.
It just really feels like they're telling us everything ahead of time. It's like, okay, so what am I going to watch? The fights?
I don't.
You know, yeah.
I honestly still have no idea. Like, even after watching all these trailers and all that stuff, I'm still like, I still have no idea what we're gonna get next week.
Mm-hmm.
So, this may sound like a weird question, but does it feel like a bunch of fan fiction? This Superman movie, this Batman v Superman, like just a bunch of uncontrolled fans just trying to, in this case, Zack Snyder, who is a huge fan of this stuff, but kind of, I don't know, unreserved when it comes to keeping his geekdom back. I don't know. He's a weird dude, Zack Snyder, but well, I do want to ask you one more question, and I was talking to Joshua about this, and the Rotten Tomatoes score. What do you think the critical rating for Batman v Superman is going to lie? I think Do you think it's going to be kind of like in the 50s or 60s?
I'm gonna give it a 68 to 70. Yeah.
The lowest being 68 to the highest being 70?
Yeah, that would be my range.
Okay. I wish I could write that down real quickly, but I don't have a pen and paper in front of me. Maybe you could write that, because I would like to see like
I'm really pulling that out of a hat here.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm honestly considering like this is going to probably be in the 50s range. I can't really say where in the 50s, 50% range it's going to lie, but I think it's going to be somewhere in there. I think that's going to be the lowest. Maybe the lowest is going to be 30. The highest I think could be a 78. That's how high I see it going.
Okay.
I don't see 80.
You do not have much in the way of expectations for this.
No. As I kind of just said a little while ago.
Yeah.
No, I just don't know what we're going to get, and I don't know. Like, here's another thing, too. I'm looking at all these trailers, and the fanboys are going nuts and all that stuff. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, it just feels empty. Doesn't it?
Well, the problem with having so many characters is that any one of them could screw the whole thing up. Okay? They're already running, in a lot of people's mind, a huge risk with their lead as Batman. Mm-hmm. That's already has some people skeptical. So they already have something to prove there. And then on top of that, I don't know.
But another thing, excuse me. The early, some of the early buzz that's been coming out hasn't been really specifically about the film, other than two things: tonally and just kind of a mixed bag of who really steals the show. And so far, the tone that I've been hearing about this movie has been Watchmen. It's kind of that dark of a film in the sense of just the violence. Mm-hmm. It's just tonally, it's like that, and which is kind of interesting. Also, given the fact there's going to be a rated R cut coming out.
Yeah.
Did you hear about that?
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, and the tonal stuff, and what was the other thing? They've been people have been saying Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman steals the show. No, it's Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor that steals the show, and so many people are contradicting one another, and I'm like, okay, which one is true? But second of all, what's the film? What is the overall film? Is it good? Is it decent? I mean, what is it? I don't know. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's kind of the early critical buzz right now. But anyway, we got a better film to discuss right now. So yeah, let's talk about Superman.
My friends, I'm not given to wild, unsupported statements. And I tell you that we must evacuate this planet immediately.
Jor-El, be reasonable.
Once there was a civilization, much like ours, but with a greater intelligence, greater powers, and a greater capacity for good. In one tragic moment, that world was destroyed. But there was one survivor.
Now, wouldn't that beat all get out?
Because of the wisdom and compassion of Jor-El, because he knew the human race had the capacity for goodness, he sent us his only son. His name is Kal-El. He will call himself Clark Kent. But the world will know him as Superman. This year, Superman brings you the gift of flight. Superman, the movie.
What you just heard was the original trailer for Superman the movie. It was directed by Richard Donner. It stars Christopher Reeve, Marlon Brando, and Gene Hackman. So, Ben, what has been your relationship with Superman, the first Richard Donner Superman the movie?
I saw it. I don't even remember how many years ago. I was a kid when I first saw it, and it was my first introduction to Superman. I did not watch any of the television series or anything that came out prior to it. So it was really my first experience into the realm of comic book heroes, and I thought it was fun. It's, I don't know, watching it again, it's like there's nothing really that iconic about it beyond the score and then just, I guess, Christopher Reeve's look. For me, when I think Superman, he's generally the face I put in place because he's the first one I saw. So no, not too much, not too much invested in that way.
Sure, absolutely. It's funny, my early exposure to Superman, at least like the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, and oddly enough, it's funny you mentioned this was like your first introduction to Superman, period. Like you had not seen the other TV shows or anything like that prior to this one. But I don't recall if I watched the first one. I think I did, because I recall watching Superman 2 quite a bit. That one, I remember watching that a lot more because of General Zod and the fight scenes in Metropolis. But oddly enough, like the image that really stood out for me from that film was Superman at the end of that movie. Superman, holding the American flag and taking it back to the White House. You remember that image? It's like
yes.
At the very end. Yeah, that image just kind of really struck me, oddly enough. And but yeah, and I don't. When I finally revisited Superman the movie, it was back in 2006 when Superman Returns came out, and not gonna lie, I wasn't a big fan the first time I saw it. I was like, okay, not as good as I remembered it being from what I can remember. But then a couple years later, and the more I saw it, I was like, this is actually pretty good. I actually really like this film. Mm-hmm. And the thing that really stood out to me was the fact that it was, I think of all the interpretations, like even with like Man of Steel, Smallville, and all these other interpretations, I feel like it's the purest of the Superman character in terms of film. There's just something so admirable about the Superman, and you just see, he does the right thing. There is no like.
He's a very clean hero, clean classic hero, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and no flaw. I mean, it's not like Man of Steel where they tried to add some complexity or angst, I guess, to Henry Cavill's Superman, I guess. But no, it was, again, the music, I mean, the Superman score, I mean, that's one aspect of this movie that sticks with me. I also just, oddly enough, I look at, like, this film as a 3-act film. You got Krypton, Smallville, and Metropolis, and my favorite part of this whole movie is actually not the first or last part. It's actually Smallville.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. Well, why don't you go ahead and what was it about the Smallville stuff that kind of?
Well, it was for me. It was a taste of classic storytelling that we lack in this modern day. The slow, thought out pacing of each of the scenes and each of the shots that I don't know. It was, for me, it was 78. The first Star Wars came out in 72. 74? 72?
77. The first Star Wars?
77.
Yeah, 77.
Okay, so it's a lot closer. I was going to say, it's like, it looks, just the style looks very similar to the original Star Wars. Just the pacing and the feel and the way they frame up the shots. Which I really, really liked and appreciated. So that's really what grabbed my attention, was just that classic, that epic, feel of a good story. Mm-hmm. And then the few visual effects that they put in, they handled really well. You can tell they tried their very hardest to make it work. Yeah. Unlike, I think, what was it? Was it 2 or 3 where they just kind of used recycled shots and they just...
I think it was 4. Actually.
4, that's it, yes.
Yeah,
4, where they used recycled shots and they just really didn't even try.
Yeah, we'll never talk about 3.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you want to do a commentary track for Quest for Peace, maybe, but...
No, not really.
Oddly enough, I actually remember watching Superman 4 at a very early age and remember I actually kind of liked it, and then I saw it again more recently, like, wow, this is a piece of crap.
Yeah, for real.
But anyway, wow. Talk about a downgrade in the franchise, where you start off with this film, and then you go where you end off with, it's like, wow, what happened? But anyway, but no, there's something about the Smallville stuff that just captures, it's the Americana feel. It's down to earth. It's just normal. It's quiet. There's no explosions, no crazy things going on. It's just a normal family, who discovers the little baby Kal-El, and then you got, a great actor playing Jonathan Kent, Glenn Ford, and when he passes away, you've had very little exposure to this character, but just the words that he shares, when him and Clark are walking away, walking up the road, and he's telling him, son, I know that you've been sent here, for a reason. That whole speech that he gives to him is impactful. And he does, and he leaves a big impression on Clark, and even on me, even with very little screen appearance. Do you kind of agree with that?
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely.
Yeah, and there's just something wonderful about that stuff, and I don't mind the young kid that's playing Clark at all. I think his name is Jeff East, I believe, but a lot of people have kind of stated that should have been Christopher Reeve. I don't know.
No, I think it was fine.
Yeah. But did you know that voice was actually Christopher Reeves? They actually had him come in and do some ADR.
Oh, they dubbed it? Really?
Yeah, what you hear is Reeves' voice actually.
Huh. Go figure. No, I didn't know that.
But yeah, another thing that you just mentioned was the epic scale of this film. I mean, and then you have Smallville, then you have Metropolis, then you have Krypton, and then the Krypton stuff, which is actually my second favorite stuff in this film. The Krypton stuff with Marlon Brando. I mean, yeah. I mean, if there was one actor you could get to play that type of role, it's Brando. I mean, who else could you get? I mean, heck, I think who was it that they wanted? I mean, I think they wanted Paul Newman as Jor-El. Actually, he was offered a deal of either he could play Lex Luthor, Jor-El, or Superman. That was the deal. I don't see that happening at all. But I think when I look back on the Jor-El stuff and compare to what Russell Crowe did in Man of Steel, I actually kind of like Russell Crowe a little bit more than Brando's Jor-El. Jor-El, in my opinion, kind of brings more of that a steadfast mentality. You know what I mean? Like he's not necessarily bothered, other than when Krypton's about to explode. He doesn't seem to be. He seems to stand his emotions, I guess. He seems to make a stand. Like he is not torn either way, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing that Brando. I don't
know. I mean, it was almost like a Ben Kenobi sort of. It's like, I know this is coming, so here's my final sacrifice stand.
And of course you got that speech. The famous. You'll travel far, my little Kal-El. We will never leave you. A lot of people have kind of compared that speech to something that God himself would say on Jesus, or even on fellow believers or something like that. Those who believe in
it was very easy to see that what's the word I'm looking for?
Metaphor.
Not metaphor, but yeah,
symbolism.
More or less that deliberate parallel.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically kind of I'm giving.
Yeah,
it's almost like
it was very deliberate.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
It's like
you were supposed to draw similarities to Jesus in the Bible. No doubt about it.
Yeah, I think. Okay, here's the speech that I remember. It's the one in when Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist, and he says, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." I've heard a lot of people compare that speech to that. Was there maybe a passage in the scripture that reminded you of that speech? Maybe.
Not specifically, but it's just the way he phrases it. By saying, I've given them my son, my only son, and it's just like, yeah, okay.
But do you have you always found that that examination on Superman to be interesting? Looking at him and finding the strong similarities between him and Christ. I've always found that very fascinating, and it seems like the writers, the original writers, that was like a massive influence because they themselves were Jewish, believe it or not. But have you found that debate to be kind of interesting, the Superman Christ comparisons?
No, I'm not surprised at it at all. No, not at all surprised.
Okay, but yeah, I've always found it, the fact that he was he's sent from Krypton, and then he's sent to Earth. He's rescued from this massive, widespread attack. Like you look at Scripture, you see, Jesus, the slaughter of the innocents, I should say, the children and all that stuff, and you can definitely say, okay, that's a similarity. But a lot of people seem to point to Moses as well as another figure that could have inspired Superman. But anyway,
yeah, which was also mentioned in the film.
Yes. What part was that again? I can't remember.
The chief editor for Daily Planet was, saying, you need to get interview with Superman. No interview has happened. No interview has been as important since maybe Moses talking to God.
Yes, or God spoke to Moses, something like that. I think it was one.
Yeah. However you phrased it, yeah.
Yeah. But let's talk about Christopher Reeve's Superman. He, out of all the interpretations of Superman, he's my Superman. I mean, he is, in my opinion, the definitive Superman. I mean, look, yeah, Henry Cavill, he's been great. I just don't know if what we're going to get next week is going to serve him the best way or not. I don't know. Tom Welling, well, you can definitely tell that was a guy who was a model, who was hired for good looks as opposed to acting chops. I don't know if you like Dean Cain as Superman. I have not revisited Lois and Clark recently, so I have. Did you ever see Lois and Clark?
No, I did not.
Okay, but yeah, I look at again. He's just he was born to play Superman. I mean, look, I know that in a way he was kind of typecast after this, and he didn't really land, other, better films. I mean, he did some interesting other titles. I mean, Somewhere in Time. I don't know if have you seen Somewhere in Time?
No, I've not seen that.
You might like that film, actually. It's actually just a little love story that, well, I won't spoil it for you. You gotta check it out.
Okay.
Okay. I can't think of anything else of significance. I know he's done a couple other. Death Trap. I heard is really good. But anyway, he is Superman. Just clean cut and just noble, just noble. But yeah, well, I mean, what are your? I know we talked a little bit about Superman, but what are your thoughts on just Christopher Reeve as an actor? Have you seen him in anything else, and what do you think of his Superman?
I don't think I've seen him anywhere else.
Other than Superman?
Yeah. As far as acting goes, it was fine. No, I think he did a great job. His chemistry back and forth with Lois Lane was odd. I don't know. That didn't feel natural to me.
Okay.
But that's about my only complaint.
Okay.
No, I think, and I absolutely agree that Christopher Reeves had the look.
Oh yeah,
he absolutely had the right look for Superman.
And the height. He was like 6'3", from what I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you just mentioned the Lois and Clark relationship, and that is. I don't know what it is. That's the Metropolis stuff specifically, but mainly their stuff together. I never sensed that he was falling in love with her. It seems like
that whole sequence where they're flying, it's just I don't know. I mean that scene where he takes her out flying and she starts reciting poetry. I mean, I don't know if you were listening closely, but it's like she sounds like she's drunk. No, she's slurring all of the words. It's like, okay, maybe she just doesn't know how to add the right emphasis and recite poetry, or maybe she just hates the lines so much she had to get drunk before she could recite them. I don't know, but it just was delivered so poorly.
Maybe this is Harrison.
Maybe it's like such a weird scene.
Maybe it's like a Harrison Ford Blade Runner situation where she was like, forced to read all this terrible stuff, and she's like, why do I have to do this stuff? We're paying you money. Okay, I'll do it. But oh my gosh, that whole thing, the "Can you read my mind?"
Yeah.
That's one thing that fans hate in this movie. I don't mind it that much, but since you just put it that way, you just made me look on this situation.
You have to look at it differently.
You made me just look on this whole situation very differently right now. But no, yeah, I never get a sense that they love that. I get the sense that she has this massive crush on him.
Yeah.
But not on her, but
no, he strikes me as a boy who's kind of found his first crush, and he really doesn't know what women are or what a good woman would be. He just kind of is like, oh, I like this girl.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of fawning over her. I don't know. It wasn't working for me.
Yeah. And there's the funny scene where, he first meets her and they're sitting down at the desks and he's just staring at her.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm like, are you really that attracted to her?
Yeah, I know, right?
I mean, Margot Kidder, in this first movie was pretty. She was really cute looking.
Yeah.
And then in the subsequent films, you can tell that she went through horrible things, but it's funny you mentioned she was drunk, I do know for a fact that she does struggle with, or she did struggle with alcohol and all that stuff, so it definitely didn't leave a very pretty, pretty reminder on her face, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's the one part of this movie that I don't think holds up well at all. Was there something about speaking of Lois, what did you think of the Lois Lane performance?
I don't know. When I watched it years ago, I thought it was fine. Nothing stellar about it. But now watching it again, it's just I don't know. I'm really not buying it. I'm not liking it that much. I think they could have found a better actress.
Yes, but yeah, they auditioned like so many other. I was looking at some.
Oh yeah, no, and I've seen the reels where they had some different people, and of the people in those reels, she was the best. But yeah,
oh my gosh, yeah, she was the one I think that got it, because everyone else just the reactions or something like that just wasn't working. I haven't seen those scenes or those screen tests.
Okay, yeah.
But I wanted to ask you this: the Metropolis stuff. When we get into Metropolis, and when you look at the first two acts of Krypton and Smallville, those are tonally very different pieces. The Krypton and the Smallville stuff tonally have a very, they're more serious tonally. And
yes.
And then when you get to Metropolis, it is a 180 turn tonally. It's a little bit slapstick at times. I kind of found that to be a little bit disjointing for what we got in the first two acts, oddly enough. And I kind of wonder if that was something that the script, if they deliberately wrote it that way, or, well, obviously it was deliberately written that way, duh, but, or if it was, or if they wanted to do something, if that was, if they did want to approach that, that way or not. Does it come across as a little bit campy at times, the Metropolis stuff?
It didn't feel that way to me.
It's not like Burton's Batman, which
maybe a little, but not that much.
No, I mean you kind of have Gene Hackman kind of being over the top.
Well, yeah, I mean that was funny. It's like, okay, they found a clever way to give the audience exposition. Well, we just put two dumb nitwits in, so he has to explain it to them, and in turn the audience. It's like, okay,
that's actually kind of true. I didn't think about it.
It's kind of clever. I see that. No, I really enjoyed Gene Hackman's performance there, especially back and forth with Otis. I don't know, just
Ned Beatty's awesome in this movie.
The stupidity between the two, it's hilarious. I love it. So any scenes with him, I thought they were paced well. It was mostly the Lois and Clark or Lois and Superman stuff that just drug on for me.
Yeah. But I do like I do like for the most part Hackman's performance. I do kind of wonder though what a darker Lex would have been like, had they written him that way. Because a lot of people don't really seem to like the whole, the land grabbing Lex Luthor and all that stuff, which I never minded that part in this movie. And it's the first film, it's like, okay, well, you can do better in the sequels, whatever. But, he definitely kind of gives the film a certain umph and a certain joy to it, like maybe in a way. Well, he doesn't hijack the movie like Nicholson did in Batman '89. I mean, he commands the screen alongside his co-stars, especially like in that scene between him and Superman. Mm-hmm. But I do, because I've seen Hackman in so many other films, Unforgiven, The French Connection, If you look at those performances, you can see a dark Lex Luthor, in those performances. And, have you, what was that?
No, yeah, I was agreeing.
Yeah. But, I don't dislike his performance at all. And I think his best scenes are with Otis. I mean, Ned Beatty, my gosh. I mean, he's, I think he had done Deliverance at this point in time, but just the banters and the part when he's looking up the dictionaries and all that stuff. It's like, no, M Mr. Luthor, and he just no, M, no, not M, N as in nincompoop. Something of kind of insulting him or something like that. But
yeah.
Another thing that I've always admired about this movie, I think I wouldn't say this is the first one that did it, but from what I can recall, I don't think we see that many in the earlier interpretations, except for in the comics. I think this is the first time we really see a glorified shot of the ripping of the shirt, and then you see the S.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That is classic. That is a classic shot right there. And I'm just thinking to myself, what are they going to... They better pull that in Batman v Superman.
Just as a fanboy salute.
Yes. Well, not just a fanboy salute, but I just think that's Superman. Especially when he's getting out of his way, and I think
if they can pull it off without it being cheesy, yes, I'm all for it.
I think they can do it, and that honestly might be the only best part of the whole movie. Him ripping off the shirt open and revealing the S. If that's it, we're good to go. We're good to go. Zach, you saved the whole film for me. So, but yeah, I mean, like the whole first introduction shot, and then you have, him just, he finds, after Lois Lane falls out, or almost, the helicopter, falls onto the side there in the building, Clark Kent finds the hat and he's running to find a place to change. And did your cut have the phone booth? Because I don't think that was in the original cut at all. You there, Ben?
There you are. You're back. Yeah, I lost you.
Yeah, I was just saying. Did your cut? I'm assuming you saw the extended cut, right?
Yes.
Okay. So your cut had the scene with him, going, or he passed by the phone booth. He looks.
Yes, he stops and looks at it. And it's like, and moves on.
Because that little classic trope. I mean, the whole, because when you if you remember, like I remember like watching the early. Oh, that was my early exposure to Superman. The Mark Fleischer, Max Fleischer cartoons from the 30s.
Okay. Yes.
Do you remember those?
I have not seen those, but I'm aware of them.
Yeah.
Apparently, Holly, that's the Superman she is familiar with.
Ah, okay. I actually recall that was my early exposures to Superman, but but yeah, I recall those images. The image of him running into a phone booth, and they did kind of a little gag right there, with him looking at the phone booth and then going off. I'm sad they didn't do it, but actually they did something better. He just runs into a spiral door, turns around, and then comes out as Superman. And there's just something joyful about seeing those shots. The flying, I think, surprisingly, the flying sequences and all that stuff, they still hold up.
No, they actually, for the time, they do. They blend well for the style and just the period of the film.
Yeah, and the one, there's probably only one. I don't know if you remember the shot, but there's one shot with Superman. I think he's going off to save the nuclear, or to stop the nuclear bomb, and there's a scene. He's going over water, and the sun is like shining straight into the camera. I think you could see a light, a lens flare. Do you recall something like that?
Yes.
Okay, that was the one thing that's like, okay, they were shooting. That was the one thing that I think doesn't work, because if that shouldn't be there. It's like,
yeah,
that doesn't quite work at all. And I'm thinking to myself, JJ, you weren't involved with this film, were you?
For real, yeah.
Was there something from this movie that really stood out to you, whether it was a scene or just some sort of thematic element of the film? That stood out to you?
For the longest time, pretty much the only thing that really stood out to me was the score. But watching it this time, it was absolutely those scenes where Clark is at the family farm. He's out in the distance, and his mom walks up to him, and they have a brief conversation. He says that he needs to leave. Just the way that was framed and everything, with home in the distance and him looking out beyond, and I loved that shot.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, especially when it's going over the corn field and all. Oh my gosh!
Yes. Yeah, with that crane pull up.
Yeah.
Yes, no, it was brilliant.
That's beautiful. And the thing that shocks me about this movie, this movie has kind of a Spielberg vibe to it at times.
At times, yes.
Yeah, especially, specifically in that Smallville sequence. It has those, and maybe it's just the music, but, the thing about this film was that it was directed by Richard Donner, and the film they had done prior to this was the Omen, the original Omen with Gregory Peck, and this guy, and he's also done like Lethal Weapon and The Goonies and all that stuff, and Richard Donner is one of those, versatile film directors. I mean, if you've seen just the wide range of stuff that he's done, the guy's super talented, in his own right. Have you seen like Goonies or any of the Lethal Weapon movies?
I think I saw one of the Lethal Weapon movies. That's about it, though.
Okay, he's done he did all 4, surprisingly enough. So, Mel Gibson. I just recently rewatched the first one not that long ago, and that thing, Mel Gibson, what a Martin Riggs, my gosh, what a performance.
For real.
Oh man. But I guess we'll talk about the ending for the film. I think oddly enough, this scene it works in my opinion because how else could the continuity error is this: he spins the world around. Okay, he spins the world around. He comes back to Lois Lane. That crack should have been coming at that point in time, or timeline-wise. Okay, so timeline-wise, okay. So when he comes back to find her, not in terms of when after she's been crushed, but like after he's changed the world, he comes back at that point in time. Prior to that, wouldn't the missile would have been heading towards that area, or it would have hit that area by then? Am I wrong in that?
I thought so too. It felt like he stood there a little too long. So I don't know unless I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, a lot of people have said, like, scientifically, had Superman if that was even possible, he would have killed all the people on the planet to turn the world around, something like that.
For real,
yes.
Yeah. It's like, I don't think that's how physics work.
It's movie magic. You do that stuff.
Yes.
Have you ever had a problem with that ending? Or has it been like, what, it's a comic book movie, it's a fantasy movie?
It's comic book, and so it's never bothered me.
Yeah. Like, I've never, oddly enough, when I've watched this movie, I've never thought comic book movie, oddly enough. Like, I'm not sitting here like, oh, I'm watching a comic book movie. I just feel like I'm just watching a movie. I don't feel like I'm watching, like, like a Spider-Man, or I feel like I'm just sitting back and watching, just this big epic story about this guy. I don't feel like I'm watching a comic book film. Let's talk about where does this lie, in your point of view, where does this lie in the pantheon of comic book movies? Does this feel like, this is the one that really started it all, if you think about it.
Yeah. No, I would definitely throw it under good adaptations of comic book.
Yeah.
To the point that it doesn't feel like a comic book movie. It just feels like a good movie that happens to have a comic book hero, as the lead.
Yeah. And I think that's something that maybe, I don't know if that was something that Feige was inspired by when he did his Marvel movies, but I think you can definitely say that's where Christopher Nolan was definitely inspired by the Batman movies. Like, let's not make a comic book movie, let's just make a great movie.
Exactly. We've had way too many comic book movies.
Yeah.
Way too many.
Yeah. And you'd also look at this film, and you can't help but notice that without this film, you wouldn't have had, the Marvel movies, or, the Christopher Nolan movies, or even the Sam Raimi, movies. And heck, as flawed as it is, and as much as people seem to point to that one as being the one that really started it all, Tim Burton's, Batman, I think, is definitely indebted, to this one. I would say so.
Well, yeah, no, it was such a success that, well, it got 4 movies and the 4th one killed it. But
I would say 3 was just on the cuff of killing it.
Yeah,
Richard Pryor.
But it was successful enough that studios were certainly willing to take a gamble again with someone else. No doubt about it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else we need to talk about Superman the movie.
I loved just the visual effects held up quite well. The miniature work for at the beginning was well done. blended quite well.
Yeah.
And I liked that I liked the blending of on-set and matte painting for Fortress of Solitude.
Oh yeah,
That was I do recall that as being a well done set, completely fantastical set, and not looking like Lost in Space.
No, it's funny. It's actually funny you mentioned that. You look at this film, and you definitely see how it's inspired the other, the future interpretations of Superman. Whether it was the one that's coming to my mind is Smallville specifically. That one was definitely highly inspired, and maybe even to a fault, kind of being too much inspired by that. But
yeah.
I gotta ask you this: does the theme of father figures, does that idea seem to stand out in this one?
Yes, it does stand out pretty well. Oh, and that's one thing. Okay, compared to Man of Steel, that's one thing I really liked that this one did well, and that is the death of his earthly father. Okay, it was just stupid in Man of Steel. Okay, it was stupid. Like, no, you stay here. I will run toward the tornado and go get the dog, even though I'm just a mortal.
You should have just sent Clark into there. It's like, look, kid, you're invulnerable to all this stuff. You go in there and
yeah. So no, having his earthly father die and it be completely out of his control. I liked that. I like that a lot.
And I like that it's not his. In this film, it's an everyday thing. It's hurtful, yes, but it's something he has to come to terms with.
Yeah, it's like, okay, death is a part of life. He grasped that.
Yeah. And maybe that's kind of reversed at the end of the film when he saves Lois. But yeah, no, that scene when he dies, there's a certain there's a sadness. You look into Glenn Ford's eyes and he says, oh no, you feel sad for him because he's not going to be there for him, for his wife and Clark.
Yes.
That scene is more impactful than all of Kevin Costner's scenes in Man of Steel put together.
Yeah, no, that scene was handled so beautifully. Yeah, it really was.
And I sense his urgent, not the urgency, but just the the desire to see Clark, fulfill his destiny. Where Kevin Costner is just like, why don't you just hide yourself and maybe let some people die, maybe.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. It was the original Uncle Ben speech, with great power comes great responsibility,
No, I mean, maybe, except it's been reversed in some ways. Except
but
Kevin Costner was just like, well, maybe you should let kids die, but you just keep yourself.
Yeah.
Man of Steel commentary, folks, coming very, very soon. So
painfully coming to you soon.
I'm honestly dreading. I'm actually the one who kind of liked Man of Steel, but
I didn't mind it, but I didn't like it either. It was just a summer flick to me.
Just knowing where we're going, well, not knowing, but kind of not having any idea where we're going next week and what we're gonna get. I'm just worried, and I'm just worried that whatever we're gonna get next week is gonna really dampen any flavor or any kind of respect that I had left for Man of Steel. So we'll see what happens next week.
Yeah, there's so many things against it right now.
Anyway, we'll talk about that next week, folks. So anyway, Ben, do you want to just go ahead and plug your stuff away, your websites and your...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can find me. I haven't updated it in a while. I need to go sit down and do that. But you can find me and a lot of my work at indyvfx.com. That's INDY and the letters VFX. Yeah, and I just kind of talk talk there about random visual effects stuff, movie industry, whatever, and then my own personal work and projects. So yeah.
Okay. All right, there you go. Folks, you can find us on iTunes and on Twitter and on Facebook. Please like us and subscribe to any of those or all of them. That would be fantastic. And please send us an email at s2spodcast@gmail.com. We can definitely use some listener support. And that's going to do it. So up next is, well, it all depends on what works out. It's either going to be Batman 89, the Tim Burton film, or Man of Steel commentary. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Are you joining us for Man of Steel, Ben?
Say it again.
Are you joining me for Man of Steel commentary? It's either going to be Friday or Saturday.
I might. I might. It depends on how much time I have.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm interested
in revisiting it. So
yes.
Okay. So sorry that none of you other guys couldn't join us for the Dark Knight trilogy commentaries.
Oh, I know, right? Yeah. That would have been a lot of fun. I just did not have time.
It's okay. Finders keepers. No.
Yeah.
Anyway, folks, you can catch us next week, and we'll catch you soon. Cheers.
See ya.